Well, I loved having Erynn Mitchell on the show last week and having her back tonight.
Oh, we could have like 5-part episode of her talking about movies, and we could do back and forth and like
really well informed and educated.
I mean, the history of movies. I mean, it's not just the modern movies.
It's not often we find someone that knows more about movies than our own producer, but here she is, the one, the only Erynn Mitchell, actress, filmmaker, and director.
Welcome to the third chair. Erynn, she didn't have to stay in Doug's basement this week. She's out in
Peter
LA.
and Doug, they've been in the basement. I've been sending the cats down to take care of them. Not much
those
food.
cats are very friendly, I tell you, after a week. So, welcome back, Peter.
Hey, yo!
Did you sleep well last night?
I did. Actually, the best sleep I had in a while.
No, good.
I thought we voted that there was no more yo.
I don't know. We had one guest, Erynn, that was a local African-American rapper, young guy, and the show when we were filming it, I was half asleep. I'd been up all night, and he caught me dozing. So we got me.
He's talking to me, looking at me, and he turns around and says, "You don't sleep all night." Talking. It was great.
Yeah, it's one of our most watched episodes.
So
really hard. Rapids are really.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're gonna go because last week we talked about your directing. And you're also an actress, the other side of the camera. Do you? To me, the hard part about acting, I think, is before you get the part, the auditioning process. Can you give anybody any advice on doing an audition?
Yeah, I'd love to. I've only auditioned very, very small. I would consider myself very new in the acting world. I've done acting for a while, but I fully committed to acting. I would say I was doing it out of convenience. I just like acting. So I just recently, but I think the biggest things are to, want to hire you. They don't want to see 1,000 people, and that's a lot of time, that's a lot of energy, so I think have faith in yourself when you show up. They don't dislike you, you don't have to be scared going in. And I think it's also important to remember that everyone is nervous. You're nervous, the people behind the table are nervous, everyone who's auditioning is nervous. Use that to, enhance your performance. And I would say when you go in for an audition, go in, be yourself, and then leave as soon as possible. Leave as quick as possible. Don't, get things from your skill in the moment. You don't have to convince people you're right. You just have to do your thing.
And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, it might be just something the other person did, right? Or they put it.
Yeah. And sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes it is about, this person is more visible. This person has worked with the director before and decided they were going to come and do this part instead of not do the part. Sometimes it's not even you. So just do your best.
I think it's a challenge on one level, too, because if an audition doesn't work out, you'd like to know, without beating yourself up, what I can do better to improve for the next time. But on the other times, I've also seen where the casting director is looking for something specific. And if you don't, you're 5'8" and 200 pounds, but they're looking for 6'4" with blonde hair. You might do your lines perfectly, but they're, that's an extreme example. But I've seen that. I applied for one TV commercial where the casting director looked at me and said, "You will be the burrito man." It's like I didn't even said a line, and I got a part. Yeah, but I happened to be the look that they were looking for. God knows why, but
said it really well. Yeah, I love RuPaul. He said it really well. He said, "Show up really color purple. Go be the best color purple that anyone has ever seen. And if they're looking for orange, they're gonna find an orange. But when they need the color purple, they'll remember how good you were as the color purple.
That's good.
Have you ever done like a stage show, Broadway stage show, or are you mostly
Ish. Thank you guys for thinking I've done Broadway. I really,
yeah.
I'm really honored. No, I on stage, but I've done a lot of classes that are theatrical based. So since being to Los Angeles, I've done a lot of stage training, but I have not been on the stage yet.
So when you do a show, how do you emotionally and mentally get to it? Do you have like a mantra that you say, or or something in your mind that you do, exercise?
Yeah, I developed some characters in film, so I'll talk to it. I would do it the same in theater with some rehearsal nuances for the stage versus the screen, but I think my process would be very similar. I like to be expert on the character. It's kind of funny because being a director almost helps me as an actress, because as a director, I don't even feel like I want to be the expert on the character. I want the actor to collaborate in that way and bring what they think the character is, because if I trust the actor, I know they're going to have stuff. So for me, I try to know everything about who they are. I try to spend some time as the character, if that makes sense. So I'll have a lot of music that's the character. I will, spend a day or two, I'll get up and the work for the day will be, how does this person live their life? And then I'll just live my life that day as the character. And so that's kind of, it's not necessarily a mantra, but it's like, I think as an actor and as an artist just in general, it's a way of life. So I want to find myself in each of the characters. So how is this similar to my life? How is it a little different?
So if you play a fictional character, you kind of think of a backstory for this character, how they got there, and things like that.
Yeah, and what is similar about what this character has lived that I have lived? What is similar about how we feel? What a part of me am I relating to in this character?
Yeah,
I had a backstory when we did a little series, a comedy series about a dove taking over the world, and I played the accountant, and I had my own backstory of what the accountant, where he came from. And,
yeah. Well, you were a Department of Defense auditor for 25 years.
Yeah, but
experience.
Yeah.
But the backstory of the accountant was not the same as my backstory.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. That's we created a sci-fi 7-minute series for 2 years of called The Day of the Dove, where a small Australian diamond dove tries to take over the world. And it was a slapstick kind of Gilligan's Island, Hogan's Heroes, Get Smart kind of humor. And we would get these...
No one on the show was very bright.
Yeah. And
except IQ 200.
But we would get these responses from people around the world. Who did the dove represent? Is he fighting the man? Is he fighting oppression? And it was like, no, he's like Pinky in the Brain.
Pinky in the Brain, I love that.
But it's amazing how people will read into, what you're doing is for a cause or something, when you might be doing it that way, but you're not necessarily doing it that way. You may just be trying to entertain.
Yeah,
my favorite things about art. I have a super short anecdote. I directed a mystery film for my thesis project at UCCS, and it wasn't finished, but when I was doing work with the actors, I would always ask the actors, what do you think happened to the title character? Because it was very up in the air what happens to her. So I just wanted to see what each person in the film thought. And every single person said something different, but they always had their character in the best light. So one person was like, I helped her escape. This other person is, I don't know, but this is our relationship. Or she was always supportive, and then all of a sudden this happened. But they always had an answer that was in favor of their character, and I thought that was so fascinating. All different.
So they had their character be likable in their own mind, Because that they would help in the long run. They would be there at the end. That is a good, interesting.
Their own story, or the hero of the story from their perspective.
Well, we had to. We had one of the challenges of doing something on a small scale with volunteers is they frequently don't show up. And so we'd have these parts written and the actors wouldn't come. And so I ended up like playing multiple parts in some of the series.
So we wrote into the script that he was a clone.
Yeah, we had to explain why there was so many people.
The clones were bad guys.
Yeah, we were bad guys, and only one hero was able to figure it out, but they weren't entirely sure.
Yeah. You always wondered about the heroes in our thing too, because they didn't seem perfect either.
None of them were very smart, but we didn't go to film school, so the web series actually was
a film school. Yeah.
Some of it, I mean, you can see. People. We had one guy commenting, "Oh, your sound's off on this." I'm like, "Yes, I know. I'm still learning how to do it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, I love all types of film. Even I've helped a lot of filmmakers with their first film ever. And the thing about that is, I get so frustrated when people are like that. It's like, also, we're all just having a good time. Go, we're not curing cancer. We are making movies. And don't complain, go find something more interesting to complain about in this world. In this world, you're the most upset about the sound in your sci-fi.
Yeah. So it was a good learning experience for us.
So when we get back, we're going to ask you what your first paid gig was.
I love, okay, great.
Welcome back to the third chair. Peter's here after running around during break.
I did.
We don't know where we went.
I definitely did.
Okay.
I heard that taco crunching.
Quiero Taco Bell.
We should have had the burrito. It had the soft shell. You wouldn't have heard that. That's for sure. So before break, I asked you what was your first paid gig, and can you let us know about that?
Like in the film industry?
In the film industry? Well, yeah.
Well, or your first job in high school, whatever.
Yeah, so I did a ton of freelance videography, so a little in the documentary. I'm gonna leave off those credits because those are a little more like PBS syndicate kind of stuff, But my first paid gig when it came out here, I won't talk too much about it, but it was it was super funny because I'd come to Los Angeles and I'm still thinking, now that I'm coming out here, I'm a little, I'm involved in the film community and I have a little bit of a name in the film community and where I came from. But now that I'm out here, I'm starting from the bottom. So I need to recognize that. And I wasn't sure yet my boundaries around what I was going to be doing, Because some people, they kind of do some other stuff to supplement their directing and acting in the film world, So I took on an AD, an assistant director job, with somebody who is tangentially related to my school, but not connected to the school directly. Only one person was, and they were not to blame for the situation, But so I showed up, and it was a weekend, essentially, and everything that could have ever gone wrong on a film set went wrong. It was just a little bit of, I think, an experience issue with the filmmakers, because there was a little bit of a lack of professionalism, and it was a little bit more of it was a professional project that was being treated very casually by the filmmakers. And so there were just a lot of little things that went wrong that shouldn't have necessarily gone wrong, because film sets are a mess. Things do go wrong, but this was a little bit excessive, So I remember I was walking back and I ended up leaving early the final day because they were going to be extending into just not, it was a little bit, there's a lot of rules around how you work people on a film set, because there's a lot of issues around exploitation in the film industry, especially. So I'm very passionate about making sure people get turnaround time, which is the time between ending and starting again. I think there needs to be a 12-hour turnaround time at least, and just very strict rules around how long a set can go, especially if there's a commute that needs to happen afterwards. You know what I mean? To return home from set or whatever. And all of those rules were very clearly not going to be respected. So I respectfully left the production at the break time after making sure they were all set and all okay. And I remember I was walking back to the car, and I had just left this. It was a lot, and I said to myself, I was in the middle of a forest because that's just where we happened to be shooting, right? So I walked from the ocean where they were shooting, and I like go towards the forest to get to my car. I stopped in the middle of the woods, and I just started laughing. And I said, I am never doing anything except directing and acting ever again. I can't do this.
Yeah.
That was my first paid gig, and that is what happened.
That's hysterical.
Yes.
It led me to my path.
So memorizing lines, because I know some of those speeches are long, or some of those give and takes are long, and I'm amazed sometimes at some of the things that the actors and actresses memorize. How do you do that?
I'm a huge fan of repetition, so me just saying the lines and also getting into the character and working on the lines in conjunction with some of the other exercises I talked about. That is super helpful for me personally. But I think if you're really struggling with a particular line or a particular section, I don't think it's about the words. I think it's about you don't understand how what they mean in the context of your character. So I find that if you're really, really struggling with a line, you want to visit how you're perceiving the character and how you feel about the character's world. And that usually helps resolve the line issues. Because if you don't know why you're saying something, I think you'll struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But sometimes it's also like not great writing. There are ways to, writing is a really ironic kind of thing. You learn to write proper English, and then for scripts you have to learn to write how people talk, which is not proper English, and all the variations of that. Yeah, and then contextualize it for the culture, whether it's the South or the Northeast or wherever. And that can be challenging, memorizing lines.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, so I saw on your website a couple of different things that piqued my interest. One of them was you talked very positively about how important it is to collaborate to have a good outcome. But then, this may have been the LA Voyage magazine article on you, which is a great article on you. I encourage people to read that. But also how at times people that collaborated with you almost like stabbed you in the back or didn't treat you right, or so there are some dangers with collaboration. That seems like a paradox. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's this really my overall journey in Colorado with film. I'm very thankful for. I credit it with a lot of my artistic self as a director. I credit it with a lot of how I approach now. I feel very thankful for that part of my life because I feel like it was my say yes to everything era. But there is a bit of a bittersweet touch when I look back at it because it's really hard to talk about, I think, because it's kind of like icky feeling, it's always icky feeling when you have issues, especially with collaborators, because film is so intimate and the arts are so intimate that, you don't want that with the people you're trying to, you're showing your soul to the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
when you're making something. And so it's really hard to navigate those kinds of issues. But I had a lot of collaborators who were all supposed to come to Los Angeles with me, or that's what I thought we all wanted, you know? And as it got closer to happening, I don't know if it was self-sabotage on their end. I don't know if they were scared they couldn't do it, so it was better to just like sabotage the whole thing. But I dealt with a lot of people who were very not willing to collaborate because they were scared that they weren't smart enough or good enough, or you know, I usually find that when people are hard-headed about, you know, if we don't do it my way, the film sucks. I had a lot of people like that who were working with me on an editing level, on a like camera level. Not well, and one of my closest collaborators ever, I still work with. She was the one who ended up actually like shooting all of my films when we had these issues. You know, she's amazing. Her name is Nicole Maputo. She's a cinematographer who's working in Europe right now, and so I'm so thankful for her to help me navigate through this time. But and I think it's really hard to do this in a healthy way if you don't understand who you are and what you are and why you're doing this. And I just think some of the people I was working with hadn't discovered those parts of themselves. So when it came to moving to Los Angeles, like doing a life-changing thing, you know, something that is very difficult, like financially, emotionally, mentally, physically, all of the above, I just think they weren't ready for that, and they took it out on me. And so it was really, really hard, but it, you know, I still look back on all those films with reverence. I still appreciate all of them. I appreciate all the work we had together when it was good, but yeah, it was really difficult. It was really difficult, and I think it's a hard part of the process that we don't talk about, especially as you get to different levels in film, is how hard it is to find the right people to go with you all the way.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm going to ask you this question when we come back from the break, and that is, what's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in your life, and how did you do that? When we come right back. Hi, Peter and Doug here from The Third Chair. We're looking for a win-win situation. We want to keep these videos put up on a weekly basis, and we want to help you succeed with your business adventure.
And we've brought up as a show a lot of important issues that people are interested in, and we brought up a lot of local actors and artists and bringing them forward, which helps them as well as our audience members in finding some of these things.
So there is an email on the screen. Send us a note if you're interested in knowing about some of our sponsorship packages. Welcome back to The Third Chair. I'm Peter. That is still Doug the Auditor.
I'm not the auditor anymore.
Well, you've retired after 25 years of chewing out five-star generals that they're spending
34.
spending too much money on bombers.
Not many 2 5-star generals around. But
that's right. That's right. Probably just the Joint Chief, huh?
And we do make him do the company taxes.
Yeah, he does the company taxes.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a very important man. Very important. Well, at the end of the last segment, I asked you what has been the most difficult obstacle to overcome and how did you do it. That was right after you told the story when we were talking about some of the challenges of collaboration. I didn't know if that was actually the biggest struggle that you feel like you've overcome or not. So I'll let you run with that.
Yeah, I think that section of my life was one of the biggest. I would say I've gone through 3 really difficult things in my life, and one is my upbringing, which I'm still working through. I feel like, and I'll always still be working through. So I don't feel like I've reached an end destination with that yet. But I feel like the time I just talked about with the collaborators, I feel like it's the one thing I've fully overcome and am at peace with. You know, I feel very. I feel very good about it in that area, but I would say the hardest thing ever and art and life are so connected. I'm actually like my grandpa's in hospice right now. He is a military veteran from the Navy. He was drafted into Vietnam. He didn't want to go, and he actually has ALS as a result of his service in the military. So I think losing him has been very difficult for me. And it was really nice to have Socrates because I found out I've been writing Socrates and I've been kind of struggling with it. And then he had his diagnosis happen right before we went into filming for Socrates. And so I think for me, Socrates became this piece about processing through how you lose somebody who you feel like is a guide for you, I suppose.
Yeah, and of course, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, is a real, for the most part, slow decline. You see people kind of get weaker slowly over time, sometimes faster, and it's very difficult.
And it's hard because he's all there
Yeah.
cognitively. It's just your body not working.
Yeah,
So there's something about it that I think is made me think about film, even film, and how important art is to life. The hardest things about it is that he can't communicate. So I don't know how he feels. I don't know what he's going through. I can just kind of see what he's going through. So I think it's given me a new perspective on how important art is in communicating and feeling connected to people. And all he does all day is watch movies and TV and shows. It's the only way he can really access those human parts of ourselves that is just, something like talking. You don't realize how privileged you are to be able to just speak.
Yeah. My one of the coaches, I helped coaching an ice hockey team, and one of the fathers was in the process of getting really bad with Lou Gehrig's disease, and over a few years, from walking around to being in a wheelchair to having to have a tracheostomy to being able to barely move around in his wheelchair with two fingers. Just, I mean, it's a really slow, painful, grieving loss of people like right in front of you.
And it's a surreal experience to see somebody go through it too, because you kind of saw that something was wrong and just how fast it just starts to develop, how quickly he had to have his tracheostomy, all those things, it sneaks up on you, I guess. And it was hard to be going through that. I think, there's all the very normal parts of grief that you're going through, but having just made this move to Los Angeles, it was so hard for me because it's like the best things in my life are happening in terms of wow, I'm in Hollywood doing film and doing my whole thing, and this is so great, and I can be here, and my family can see it, and then now I'm losing one of my biggest supporters from afar.
On a lighter note, and thanks for sharing that, I can tell that it's still very painful for you. On your website, you mentioned, or in your Instagram posts, the importance of being earnest, a trivial comedy for serious people by Oscar Wilde. That, I see a big smile. What is the significance of that for you, or the meaning?
Yeah, so I actually, funnily enough, I really want to see it on stage. I'm a huge fan of Oscar Wilde. I had a friend back in undergrad who was obsessed with him. And so, he's just kind of become this artist in the back of my life. I also take a lot of style inspiration from him. He always had a big, fancy coat, and I love that. That picture was actually taken at one of my favorite theaters to go to here in Los Angeles. It's a repertory theater. And the thing about a repertory theater is that it's a group of people, it's a community of people, and they essentially put together however many shows per year, and they, as a team, switch out jobs. So sometimes they're acting, sometimes they're directing, sometimes they're, doing the lights or the production design. But they all have to do every job as they make all of these productions for the time that everybody's part of it. And I just think there's something so beautiful about that. We always talk about the art that's done at a very high level. And, it's my career path to be hopefully working at that high level one day. And So, not to say there's anything wrong with that, but we forget a lot of times in the glitz and the glam of, let's do the big project, let's get this big studio film, let's get this independent film greenlit, blah, blah. We forget about the smaller community-driven art that I think is so significant and such a huge part of the art world and our community. And so supporting some of those community efforts are really important to me. So I like to make sure I highlight the spaces I go to and those things.
Did you ever read The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde?
Oh my gosh, I actually haven't, but it's on my list.
Yeah, that is.
The Selfish
it's a-
Giant. Okay,
It's a little children's story, but it really touched me when I was a kid, and I've read Oscar Wilde as an adult because because of The Selfish Giant when I read as a kid.
Oh, wow. And Erynn, after you've read The Selfish Giant, then you will be invited back for a third show. So let us know. Let us know when you've completed the book.
It's only like a 5-minute story, so it's not that hard.
Well, it might take me a year.
Oh yeah, Peter. It'll take a couple hours, but
Peter will have Doug act it out for you.
Yeah,
so
maybe
ready.
maybe I can have my wife read it to me as a bedtime story.
that would work because it'd take her about 5 minutes.
Yeah. If you're very good, she'll do it.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm in trouble. Yeah.
Did your family read bedtime stories to you? Welcome to the third chair. We had a bit of technical difficulties. Internet connection got lost.
Yeah, but we fixed it.
It's fixed now. And
Yeah, we
Peter's still here.
Yeah, we had
And
Doug climb on the roof with a
we-
big antenna. He had to hold it up like the rabbit ears.
And we wanted to leave Peter up there, but he refused. And
It's
Erynn
cold.
patiently came back to us.
Then Doug fell down off the roof, kind of like Christmas in with the Cranks when he comes sliding off the roof and he's
Yes.
hanging down by a rope.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Peter pulled me up.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then I just asked you, and maybe that was the question, did your family read to you when you were a kid? Someone in your family?
Yes, and no worries about the issues. What's showbiz without a couple problems on set,
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
my grandma would read to me. I'm really, really close with my grandparents. And my parents weren't really the, bedtime story type of parents. So my grandma would read me a couple of them. There was one I really liked about all these kids who would, their lunch or something like that. But she would also read me the Baba Yaga story. It just happened to be the books we had around.
Bob and Gaga.
You know,
Yaga.
Oh.
It's like a Eastern European story, and it's about this witch in the woods and this girl. It's a little
I
like
think
Hansel and Gretel-y, kind of like that kind of format. Witch in the woods, and some kid stumbles on them.
Oh, wow.
I know my daughter, because I read to my daughter a long time, and she sent me a quote this weekend about reading to your kids and how you should read to your kids, and I was like, oh, that was so sweet,
Yeah.
because, I did
It's so
that.
important, I think.
And I
It's
think-
such especially now, I think there's a big problem right now with media literacy and, just being engaged in things like reading, things like, research and all of that. So starting people off young, read books, that's so important.
Yeah, for sure. There's some concern that people are so used to short attention spans on social media that they really struggle actually to sit and read a book, because it's not like giving you that every 7-second dopamine hit on your brain to make it exciting. And
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little last week, but I think that like social media rapid fire information, I think it's hurting a lot of the arts in a lot of ways.
yeah.
So, when you were undergraduate, I understand you made a lot of films. What did you learn from this process of making films? I guess what not to do and what to do.
Yes, I learned like so much we could do. Like I could write a whole book, but a couple of really important things. Always back up your footage.
We learned that.
We learned that. Yeah. We shot an entire music video, and the files corrupted before we backed them up. Problems with the SD cards, and we had to reshoot the whole video again the following week. But yeah, we're really paranoid about that.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got to go through it once. Everybody's got to go through it once. But when you go through it, you will back up your footage everywhere. So do that from the get-go. I think that one, it's okay to like work with your friends on art. I think that's part of the thing. That's part of the big thing. The only reason I'm going to film school is because I would watch things like The Lord of the Rings, behind the scenes, and everyone would talk about how they went to school together. So, I totally, work with your peers, work with your friends, but I think you should learn how to set boundaries as a creator. Understand the difference between, especially if you want to take this professionally, you should treat it professionally, treat it like a job. It is the arts, and the arts is more free-flowing. You're not going to get in trouble if you don't do it that way, but I think it's something, if you get in the habit of it very early on, it's really important. And I think the other thing I learned doing all of those films in undergrad that I'm very thankful for now is it's funny because it's not just about the film. It's almost like making the film is the easiest part. Like, you want to get people to see your film. So I think I learned a lot about how to put yourself out there as a creator and how to approach, like, getting your work seen, getting your name out there. It's really important to be involved in your community. And I feel like I learned all of those lessons just making a ton of stuff in the spring, trying to do the best I could to create opportunities for myself and for other filmmakers to discuss and show their work. I think that's so important to learn as early as possible.
Yeah, I wear several.
Are you sure you're awake?
Yeah, I just dropped my questions and my clipboard on the floor.
He's just got bad aim, but he's throwing it at the producer.
So here's a follow-up question to that, because one of the hats I wear in life is I do some life coaching, including with artists. And one of my daughters is a writer, and thank you, Doug, who's
the producer was
finished her first novel, and now is on some rewrites. And what I've noticed is that sometimes artists don't actually finish a project, and it seems to me part of it is there's a little fear of rejection. Like, if I call this done and I put it out there, somebody then can say it's done now and I don't like it. And because of those kinds of feelings, like, things don't ever finish. Do you ever have feelings like that, or deal with that kind of thought process?
Yes. I think that artists should really get really, really comfortable with that. It's kind of funny because I've done so many projects and I've done so much film work, but I feel like The Death of Socrates is one of the first projects that I felt confident showing people, or confident, like, look at this thing I made, and it's not that all my other work is bad. What I just had to learn is I think you have to it's like two things. One, you have to know when it's done. You have to be able, you can always work on it for another month. You can always try reshoot something. You can always do this. You can always do that. You got to learn time. You got to learn when it's time. Show it and let it out there. But the second thing I think that's really important to get comfortable with is that, and I get it, it's really hard when you're, like we've been talking about, you put your whole soul on display. For people to not like it or not connect to it, it's almost like, oh, there's something wrong with me. But I think it's a bigger life lesson of never going to connect with everybody. And so you might as well be as authentic as possible with who you are. We've actually been talking about this in a class a lot, which confirmed a lot of my philosophy because it's the highest level professor I've had, and he's echoed a lot of these sentiments that I've had. And it's show up as yourself, authentic self you can be, and people don't like you. That's great because you know you can go find people who do like you and who do resonate with you. It's about constantly putting yourself out there. And I think he put it this way, actually, that I think is really important. I think the reason an artist is because they're brave. A lot of people don't do the arts because they're not brave enough. And so you gotta work on your courage and being brave if you want to do this. It's just part of it. And it is hard. It's not to say that that's you learn that lesson and all of a sudden criticism doesn't bother you. It's something you constantly grapple with, but it's always going to be there.
And maybe a touch of thick skin?
Yeah, that too, for sure.
Now, we saw your Death of Socrates at the film festival for Colorado, and you won a prize there. What was the prize again?
I was really thankful. Won the Women in Film Award.
And the Woman in Film. And can you describe that picture a little to the audience? Because it was really good. I remember watching that film when we were at the festival.
And if you want to send us a clip of it, we'll put it on here. Whatever you'd like to
yes.
show.
I can send you guys the Vimeo link, and then from there you can download it and use whatever section you would like.
How long is the total film?
About 6 minutes,
It's
right?
like 5-6 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So the Death of Socrates, it is about Crito of Alopece. I aged him down significantly, so this is not. It's an old Hollywood period piece. It's not historically accurate. So Socrates has killed himself as an order from the state, and all of his students have had to go into hiding. And his closest student, Crito of Alopece, is deciding if he has the strength to go on, essentially.
And
I saw it in some write-up, I don't know if it was the IBD write-up, you had done some special kind of lighting for the film or used some kind of, I don't know if it would be considered old Hollywood style lighting. Is anything ring a bell?
Yes, actually, I think the newest part of it for me, or the most interesting part of it, from the artistic side, for as the creator, it was my first time on a soundstage. So super old Hollywood. We built the entire set from the ground up. It was like two flats on this side, 2 flats on this side, 3 across, the flat with the window in the middle, and then we had a lot of old Hollywood references. Well, this one isn't old Hollywood, but it's like that older era film. I think, there's old Hollywood and then there's just like older cinema in general. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest references was The Passion of Joan of Arc. It's a silent film, and they lost a lot of the footage. So what ended up having to happen was they had to use a lot of really, really harsh close-ups in the film itself. But it gives so much strength into this trial that's taking place in the film. So I wanted to replicate that. We're in Crito of Alopece's head. So I loved the idea of getting closer and closer and closer to the actors' faces as this decision is getting closer and closer to the end. So I think the progression of it is something that really, really is reflective of old Hollywood, for sure.
Well, we need to take a break, and then we'll carry on and see, did you copy that technique from The Godfather? Hi, I'm Peter from Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching, and as you know, I do help people with drug and alcohol recovery issues. I love to help people get better, but I also offer a variety of other services, including regular life coaching services. I've helped several people write and finish a book. I've helped a doctor that was in medical school graduate and then get into a residency. And I also actually have quite a background in mathematics, and I do some math tutoring for the GED as well as the ASVAB for those that are thinking about a career in the military. So my contact information is on the screen. Please send me an email or a text, and we can talk about some of these services and how I can help. That's Peter Grigg at Pikes Peak Recovery Coaching.
Welcome us, Peter. You were.
I was waiting for a timer.
The timer's on.
Timer's on.
He said to himself.
Did he say action?
Well, we are ready to go.
We're ready to go.
We were going to talk about The Godfather.
We're talking about The Godfather because, Erynn, you're talking about the way that, when we're talking about another film, I don't remember if it was last week, some kind of horror film, the technique of the sensation of getting closer to a person.
We were talking. Oh yeah, last week.
Yeah,
it was a Doctor Who episode.
It was a Doctor Who episode, and who's it? Francis Ford Coppola, is that the Godfather guy?
Yeah.
You know that he did a number of new kind of filming techniques when he made that. And I was just wondering, is that someone you studied, and did you consciously think about the scene where things were focusing in on Michael when he was about to say, "I'll meet with the chief and I'll kill him"? It's not personal; it's just business. Yeah.
It's so funny you guys brought up The Godfather because I love The Godfather so much. Like "it's not personal, it's only business" is such a big life philosophy of mine. When I was a little kid, actually, quick side story. I'd seen The Godfather at an ungodly young age. The Godfather 2 was the first film I ever remember seeing.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be Michael Corleone, so I would tell the kids on the playground that was my role model. And they didn't understand any of that. So it's so funny you bring him up. The Godfather is something I always go back to. I think there's a lot of films I love in the world, like a lot of films I could talk about forever, but The Godfather is one of the most formative films in my life personally, but also as a filmmaker, because it's such a well-done story. And I'm even an apologist for the third movie. I love everything about the Godfather trilogy. I think it's perfect. But I always reference that particular scene when he is tasked to go and shoot the police officer and the
Turk.
The guy who's trying to sell everybody drugs.
Yeah, the Turk.
Trying to get his family into drugs, who shot his dad. And that scene where they're in the Italian restaurant and it's going in on his face as he's making the decision, and you just see everything he's thinking. I think there's something so powerful about that. And you're watching him, but you're almost in his head. So I think that's something that I really, really love recapturing, for sure.
Yeah, he changed film because he was about to be fired. They didn't want him as directing it, and they asked him, with the film where he's filming up on high down to where the oranges are going everywhere, and they said, well, whose perspective is that? And he said, I guess it's mine. I'm the director.
Yeah. So, Erynn, thanks for being on the show. Can you share your social media in case people want to follow you, contact you for whatever reason? Maybe they have a question about filmmaking, so just let us know. I know you've got like 1,000 different social media, and also something called Scorpia Magazine as well. Maybe, so tell us about that as well.
Yeah, so all my social medias, you can find me, just my name 3 times. So Erynn. Instagram and TikTok are where I really post daily updates, little daily clips and glimpses into my life. And then my website obviously has my career updates. Scorpia Magazine is actually a passion project of mine that I started while I was in Colorado with the filmmaker I mentioned, Nicole Morpurgo, who's in Europe right now. We also brought on another person who we went to undergrad with, Erynn Martinez, and all of us are really focused on giving people more opportunities to show their work. That is something I'm so passionate about, especially for newer artists and newer creators. So twice a year, we have a spring, summer, and a fall, winter. We will open up submissions to allow just artists from all over the world, anywhere. We've had a lot of really diverse voices, and they essentially just have a free reign to submit, whether it's a visual art piece, whether it's a recorded film, whether it's recorded theater, music, whatever it is. We help them curate a page that features them as an artist.
Wow. Well, would we be eligible for a page in your magazine?
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
For sure. Well, at least pictures of me. I'm kidding. Erynn, thank you so much. You've been gracious and wonderful and informative to the people that watch. Please like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell icon so you know when we've uploaded a new episode. Thank you, and good night from the third chair.